Okay, every year the International Documentary Association screens documentaries in order to qualify them for Oscar consideration. Most of those films, though, will never be seen in a theater again. Day to Day's David Was says one of them deserves better.
It's a downright shame that distinguished films like The Wrecking Crew might never see wider distribution. The documentary's an insider's history of the gifted L.A. studio musicians who anonymously played on hundreds of hit records for 3 decades.
They were the stone-cold rock and roll professionals, and there may never, ever be a group of rock and roll musicians of that caliber again.
The handsomely produced documentary is the brainchild of Denny Tedesco, whose late guitar virtuoso father Tommy was one of the stalwarts of the Hollywood studio scene. Denny began to film his dad when he was diagnosed with cancer some 13 years ago, then expanded the concept by digging up rare archival footage and doing interviews with the likes of Brian Wilson, Jimmy Webb, and Herb Alpert.
The signature moment in Taste of Honey is when the bass drum is knocking 4 to the floor. We didn't have a way to get back to the time without, a count off. And Hal, said, let me hit the drum, the bass drum. Everyone will know when to come in.
The surviving members of the Wrecking Crew are all on hand as well. What emerges is a touching portrait of overqualified jazz musicians who initially grumbled about having to play on crap rock and roll records, but who eventually moved into big mansions and drove shiny Jaguars to their never-ending recording dates.
I didn't care for rock and roll that much. I was basically a jazz drummer. But I realized that I'm making my living off it. If I'm going to continue to do that, I got to play that like that's my favorite music. It's not beneath you if it's supporting you.
One of the clever production touches Tedesco employs is having the individual musicians play their instruments alone, then fading in the famous record that Lick was a part of. Bass player Carol Kaye, the only woman to join ranks with the crew, is recalled by Brian Wilson as being the greatest bass player in the world. Carol then plays the very notes Brian wrote for Good Vibrations, returning the compliment by saying, "You knew this kid was into something really, really great."
I'd have never played that. I'll just go into this.
Very good.
There are over 100 music cues in the film, which could have been a fiscal nightmare for the filmmaker had the various labels and publishers not bent over backwards to make this labor of love possible. Generally speaking, licensing big hit records can cost upward of $50,000 per song. The Wrecking Crew features a gaggle of such high-priced classics like Wichita Lineman,
I am a lineman for the county.
You've Lost That Lovin' Feelin',
You've lost that love and feeling, now it's gone, gone, gone.
and California Dreamin'.
All the leaves are brown, and the sky is gray.
By the end of the film, you'll be a believer. And yes, the crew were the faceless wizards behind the monkeys as well.
Day-to-Day contributor David Was, half of the musical duo Was Not Was. Day-to-Day is a production of NPR News with contributions from Slate.com. I'm Madeline Brand.
And I'm Alex Chadwick.